Wildlife Explorers. My name is Jasmine and I'm a part of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. And I am so excited to have you all join us today for our virtual explorer experience with the San Diego Aerospace Museum. And this experience is exclusively for you, our annual pass holders.
Welcome to the museum's restoration area down here in the basement, or what we sometimes call the skunk works of the museum, where we restore, build, and recondition a lot of valuable artifacts, aircraft, and other things. So come along with us and take a look. Right behind me is a project that's underway now. Now, of course, we don't have any volunteers in the basement at this point, but when they come back, they'll continue working on what is a reproduction of the Hughes H1 Racer. This is the aircraft that Howard Hughes flew in 1935 to establish a new land-based speed record of about 352 miles an hour. Yeah, quite an achievement for that time. Made all metal, obviously. Flush rivets for speed, for eliminating any parasitic drag on the airframe. Monocoque construction, they call it. All the stresses in the skins. Highly technical at that period of time.
So does the original one still exist?
The original one is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Yes, it does exist. If we weren't able to find the pictures and get some dimensions from the one in the original in the Smithsonian, we probably would have had a very difficult time recreating this because there are no plans for this airplane. We've had to develop our own. If we walk around this way, you can see some of the construction detail back in the back of the airplane here. The aluminum panels are drilled and held in place by what they call plicos. And once everything is in position, these are removed and the skins are riveted, as you see toward the forward end of the airplane. There are on this aircraft a few other than aluminum, and basically the control surfaces, the rudder here, for example, and the elevators are fabric covered. They were done this way to save weight, and they're relatively easy to fabricate. So Hughes folks, the Hughes engineering people, did that for that reason.
Do you do the fabric covering here in this facility?
Yeah, we do. We do everything. Everything is done here. All the fabrication, all the metal shaping, everything goes on. Even the glass that will go on the windscreen and the sides of the canopy are all fabricated right here in the basement. Right here is the instrument panel that will ultimately end up in the Hughes Racer. We've actually built it, fitted it, and taken it out again because we have other things we have to do inside. But that's the instrument panel that will go in. It's virtually identical to the original from the Smithsonian.
Where do you get all the instruments?
We get the instruments basically from our own shop. We have over the years, friends of the museum have donated most of them. And we really hardly ever have to go out and buy anything simply because we have a vast collection of instrumentation. We have an assortment of a lot of different engine types, jets, radial engines, inline engines, opposed engines here, all again have been donated by different people. And while we're in a sort of rearrangement down here, things don't look very neat. They get straightened out a little bit by the time we get visitors back to the basement. So yeah, it's kind of a popular spot. Over here we have the engine shop. The engine shop takes basket case engines and turns them into things of beauty. Maybe upstairs when you get to the gallery floor, you can walk by the table and show them the engine table that we built right down here in the engine shop itself. So, as David Neville here mentioned, we actually have done some engines for the Smithsonian here. We received and restored two of the engines that are on the B-29, the Enola Gay, in the Smithsonian at Uvar Center at Dulles Airport.
I heard you have a very famous engine down here too.
We do have a very famous engine down here. Well, it's a reproduction of a very famous engine, but this is an exact copy of the Wright Brothers Flyer 1903 engine that they used for the original powered flight. It's an interesting engine. It's very different than today's engines, but it did generate 11 horsepower at 1,200 RPM, and it created enough force to propel them off the ground for the first flight was about 16 seconds, I believe. So
Does it still run?
it does run. This engine, if you notice up here, we have fuel and oil tanks, and we take this engine out every December 17th, which is the anniversary of the Wright Brothers' first flight, and we take it upstairs and put it up on the front porch and run it for anybody that's interested in seeing. Usually draws a pretty good crowd too on the 17th of December, 10 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, interestingly, it was built, I talk about it being very, very different. It was built with an aluminum crankcase and some steel components inside, if I can reach across here. Here, for example, is one of the pistons. Now, for an 11 horsepower engine, this thing weighs about 6 or 7 pounds, which by today's standard is very, very, very heavy for developing 11 horsepower. But the Wright brothers wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to break, and it didn't. So the engine functioned pretty well for what they needed to do, and yeah, 11 horsepower.
What does it sound like when it runs?
It's really interesting. It's noisy. It smokes. It leaks oil. We have our ecological catch system down here to catch the oil as it drips out of the motor, and yeah, it's quite something to see.
There's a lot of like old machines down here. Do all these still work?
Well, they all do work, and you know, with aircraft parts, and you're trying to restore or reconstruct old aircraft, it's oftentimes difficult to find parts. So what we do is we present a drawing of some sort to the machine shop guys here, and they can reproduce the parts that we need. Well, even if they're made out of wood, but basically metal parts they'll make from aluminum or steel or whatever is required. These are machines basically that have seen good service back in the various aircraft concerns here in San Diego County, back as far as 60, 70, 80 years ago. And they last a long time, as you can see. But when the computer industry took over the machine business, and CNC, as they call it, computer-operated machines like these came along, these were surplus, and these aviation concerns, gave these to the museum, and we're very thankful they did, because we still use them very, very regularly for some things, to build things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to build. So.
What other kinds of shops do you have down here?
We have a welding shop that where our welder can weld anything with any source of welding material, MIG, TIG, gas, whatever is required. We also do fabrication down here for exhibits. That doesn't have much to do with aircraft construction, but here we create every single exhibit that we put up on the gallery floor. This is actually a cutaway of a Radial engine, a Jacobs engine that was built way back when, and it shows how a Radial engine operates. And very fascinating for people who have looked at this type of engine and wonder how all those pistons and everything go around in that same plane. This is the trick, and that's just exactly how that works. You can see the little spark plug lights light up in every other cylinder.
That's cool.
It's very cool. Yeah. This is probably on YouTube. It's one of the biggest hits. Gets more hits than just about any video of this type of operation. So very cool. Because we recently had a flood here, things are kind of congested in this area. But this is the wing from the Hughes Racer. Now you'll notice that it's not aluminum; it's all wood. The reason why is that Howard Hughes was a fanatic about making things just as smooth as he possibly could, eliminating what they call parasitic drag, and that's the drag that slows an airplane down that's created by the airplane itself. So with practically absolutely smooth surfaces, the wood wing was the best that he could possibly do, and it worked pretty well. This has been a probably over 5 or 6 year project to get this to the point where it is. When we get the volunteers back, we'll continue. We're looking forward to that very, very much, and hopefully soon. So there you go.
So is this the museum's only restoration shop?
No, actually we have 2 restoration shops, this one here and then another out at our annex at Gillespie Field. There we do pretty much the same type of thing, restoration and reconstruction of different aircraft and recreating aircraft as well. So at between the two locations, we stay pretty busy.
So hi, I'm David Neville. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the San Diego Air and Space Museum. We're now up on the museum's floor, and as our curator explained to you earlier, we have a couple planes up here that we built from scratch. One behind me is a P26 Shooter. It's a P Shooter, excuse me. It was kind of an in-between plane from just beginning from after World War I and just before World War II. It was still flown by the Chinese Air Forces and the Philippine Air Forces and the American Air Forces before the war, but was later replaced by more advanced fighters like the P-40, Warhawk, and those type of things. Ours we built in the basement from scratch. It was a several-year project. We built everything on it, so it looks good. It's not flight worthy, but at the same time, it's one of the most popular planes that we have in our World War II exhibit here at the museum. And in a second, we'll go over and we'll shoot our GB, another plane that we built in our basement. So behind me is our GB Racer for the Grantville Brothers Racer. It was a very famous racer from the 1930s that we built in our basement. As you can see on this diagram here, it shows some of the pictures and how our volunteers built this plane from scratch in the basement. It was a very, very long project. It took them 6 years and thousands of hours to complete this, but as you can see, it was completely worth it since it's such a beautiful plane and so well restored. So this plane was made famous by Jimmy Doolittle in the air races in 1932 in the Cleveland Air Races, where he set a world speed record with the plane, and we can go over and look at the sign over here. I forget exactly what it was, but I want to say it was 396 miles an hour, but let's go look at the sign and see. Okay, so I actually was quite off on the speed on this. Actually, the record of that year was 252.7 miles per hour, which was still remarkable for that time. And, you know, Jimmy Doolittle was very famous for flying this plane, but he was also, after he won the race, the Thompson Trophy, in 1932, he vowed never to fly this plane again because it was very dangerous and very hard to fly and could kill a lot of pilots. So this plane behind me, we did not build this one in our basement here at the museum. It's actually from the movie Amelia. It's a replica of Amelia Earhart's Lockheed Vega 5B that was in the background in the movie, was starring Hilary Swank. It's very popular. If you look underneath the plane here, which is really cool, we have a little case with some of Amelia's belongings, including a shirt that she wore that was donated to us by her sister, and luggage that Amelia actually designed. One of the kind of neat, fun things here at the museum that you don't see every day. So one of the fun new things here at the museum is our Amelia Earhart animatronic.
I was the first woman to successfully
She can kind of tell you her story a little bit.
Solo in 1932, a feat for which I was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross by the Congress of the United States. The aircraft in which I dared to defy conventional wisdom, a bright red Lockheed Vega, sits proudly on a pedestal near me in this museum gallery. No best for my attempted around-the-world flight, my life in aviation has involved much more than that which I've mentioned to this point. In 1922, I set the women's altitude record of 14,000 feet. Later, I was the first to fly across the United States non-stop, the first to fly from Oakland, California to Honolulu, Los Angeles to Mexico City to Newark, New Jersey, and solo from Cape Town, South Africa to London, England.
So what's really cool right now is we've reopened our gift store on the weekends. It's open every Saturday and Sunday now from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., including even though the museum is closed temporarily. And we also have something very new, which is really cool, is we have an online store that you can find on our website, SanDiegoAirAndSpace.org. And you'll see the store very prominently on the homepage. And we sell all the stuff that we sell in the store online as well. So, you know, space-themed face masks, social distancing t-shirts, hats, mugs, costumes for kids for when Halloween gets closer. So it's all sorts of neat things that you can find online. But if you're down at the park one weekend and you want to come by and get in our store in person, we opened it up for the first time last weekend and had way more people come by than we thought that we were going to have. So it was really, really good. It's really neat. So, but anyways, check us out online, again, SanDiegoAirAndSpace.org, and go ahead and shop at our store. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in today. There's going to be a little bit of a Q&A after this with one of our curators or our president and CEO after you see this video. So just wanted to thank you for being Explorer Pass holders, and we look forward to seeing you again when we reopen. We will have all our social distancing protocol, and it'll be a great experience that you remember, and maybe even better after everything's over. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
That was so amazing. I loved being able to watch that and be able to see all those insane planes. It's crazy what we have at the reach of our fingertips and online. And now we're going to go into our Q&A session with David Neville, who we just saw in the video, to answer a few of our questions. David?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, thank you very much for being Explorer Pass holders. On behalf of everyone at the San Diego Aerospace Museum,
And we do have a couple of questions for you. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, awesome. So our first question is, are any of the craft, I'm assuming the craft airplanes in the museum, airworthy?
There are a few that are airworthy. Most are replicas. There are a few minutes escaping off the top of my head right now. But the one that's the most prominent that we could make airworthy again very easily, that has actually flown, is our replica of the Spirit of St. Louis. That's the one that you saw behind me in our rotunda. And that's one of the few, if only, flight-worthy replicas of the Spirit of St. Louis in the world. So it's really neat to see it up close, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's super cool. And do you or can you fly any aircraft in the collection?
I'm not a pilot, but that is a great question, because our president and CEO has more than 3,000 hours of flying various Navy jets, including over 300 carrier landings. And when he starts talking about aviation, it is amazing. And it's also true of many, many of our volunteers, our docents, the people on the floor that can give you guided tours. They can tell you their experiences of flying all sorts of different military aircraft from different branches of the service. So that's always really neat to hear their views on that. And they can actually show you in the museum versions of the planes that they flew and just tell you what it was like to fly those planes.
Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, they're an amazing resource. I love hearing their stories about the different things that they've done. Right now when we reopen, they won't be there exactly right away, but as soon as we can get them back, we'd love to welcome them back to let all our guests know just their great stories that they have.
I love it. And do any of the exhibits feature weapon systems?
That's a really interesting question. One comes to mind, and it's probably a little bit primitive, more primitive than your question, is that we have a replica of an engine in our World War I exhibit that shows how when the propeller blades go around, that there's a synchronizing switch with the machine gun that used to shoot through the propeller, so it wouldn't shoot the propeller off. The machine gun would only fire when the propeller wasn't going around right in front of it. And that's the first one I can think of off the top of my head.
Nice. And how can someone get involved with volunteering or refurbishing aircraft?
Oh my goodness, we would love to have somebody get involved with that. You can shoot our curator an email. His name is Terry Brennan. You saw him on the video. His email is tbrennan, BRENNAN, at SDASM.org. Or when we reopen, give us a call. Call our main line, and then Terry's extension is 141, and he would love to hear from you, because we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people to help in the restoration area. It's super exciting. It's super fun. It's amazing the things that they accomplish. I watch them down there, and it's like, watching this neat restoration show in person. It's really cool.
And the more the merrier, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the mural that's around the museum?
Oh, that's a great question. Really great question. It's called the March of Transportation. It was originally painted in 1934-35 as the building was opening. It basically shows the history of mankind and transportation. It starts with people walking. You see horseback riding. You see carriages. It goes through boats, ships, cars, trains. It was refurbished before the museum moved into it, so it's still in vivid color. My favorite part of it by far is the end of it, because it was painted in 1935. And so it was the artist, his conception of what the future of transportation would look like. So you see these kind of futuristic cars, you see these futuristic buses, futuristic steamships, futuristic planes. But my favorite part is they have these views of what it would look like to have flying restaurants that look like helicopters, a cannon that shoots rockets that go up into space. And I mean, the conceptions of the cars and the buses are really, really cool. But the other stuff, the way they see the future of transportation was really neat. And it's kind of to see it from the viewpoint of where we are now, you know, so many years later, that it's just really neat. It's a really nice added experience when you're in the museum.
Wow, that's super cool. I guess we never really got into floating restaurants, but we do have like those bicycle like restaurant type thing. So we're
Sure.
kind of getting there.
Sure. You know, it's people always say, you know, because way back when, I don't know, most people think about it, say, you know, where's my jetpack? You know, where's that jetpack that I was promised, you know, in the 1960s, where I could go flying around with that. And, you know, there's some neat versions of that thing, like the one that they have over the water that you can do and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, you know, it's kind of neat. It's a neat question.
Awesome. And are any of the planes original to the museum?
Not original to, well, okay, it's kind of it's a hard way to say this. Is the original museum, the original San Diego Aerospace Museum, burnt down. And we reopened a couple years after it burned down in the current building that we're in. And thankfully, we had an unbelievable community support. People said, we want to do everything we can help to get the museum reopened. So we had lots of donations, lots of community support, lots of planes that were donated, and we've continued to try and improve on that, you know, on a regular basis. So the fact is the planes that are in our museum are original to our museum, yes, but the entire collection burned down previously.
Awesome. Which actually not awesome. Probably not the best thing, but
Yeah.
like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Can you explain the affiliation with the Smithsonian?
So we're an affiliate of the Smithsonian. We're California's official Air and Space Museum and Science Center, but we're affiliated with the National Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian. And so we have several things, really important things in our collection that they have put on loan to us. Little did they know, we're not giving them back. The best one, of course, is Apollo 9, our command module. It is the only one of 13 Apollo capsules on display in the world. So it's really, really neat. Near it is a moon rock box in a case that actually was used by Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong to collect rocks on the moon when they were on Apollo 11. So that's always really impactful to see as well.
No, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
super cool. And do you have any training or support for people who want to home build their own aircraft?
I would say that the best way to do that would be to, again, get a hold of our curator, that they could, you know, put you in touch either with one of our volunteers or somebody else that does that could help you. Again, we're open to anybody that's interested in building airplanes, in aviation in general, who want to be part of the great restoration work our team does.
Awesome. And we're going to get into our last few questions before we end this. Are there any flying cars in the collection now or ever?
Flying cars, no, but if you go to our annex in Gillespie Field, there's this neat little plane out in front. It's not a Volkswagen, but it looks like a Volkswagen, and it has wings. It literally looks like something out of the movie Planes. It's kind of funny and fun, and it's a neat place to go get your picture taken with the kids. The annex isn't open right now, but it'll reopen as soon as we're safe to do so.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Well, we do have something similar to a flying car in a sense. Right now, we have a replica of the Mars Curiosity rover. It is the actual size of it. It's on loan to us from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory up in Pasadena, the NASA's JPL, and it is amazing when you see it just how big it is. To think that we could actually transport something that large all the way to the surface of Mars. It's really neat to see.
Wow, that's incredible. And have you reached out to SpaceX about future acquisition of their equipment after it's retired?
Oh, we've reached out to SpaceX, we've reached out to Blue Origin, we've reached out to all of them. It's like, give us your stuff. Anything you don't want, we will take. You know, because space stuff is hard to get a hold of. It's really difficult to, you know, get a hold of those things. That's why we're so fortunate to have Apollo 9 and the Mars rover from JPL, because it's just super difficult to get your hands on. And we contact them all the time, and we've told them, hey, we're right down the road, we'll come pick it up.
Nice. And what are some super unique artifacts in the museum?
So the moon rock box is one. That's really cool. In that same case, we have something that's really, really neat. It's called a Fisher space pen. And for years and years, so the Fisher pen company designed a pen that astronauts could use in space, that they could use it in zero gravity, you know, all those different things that they needed to do with it. So this pen got super famous when the Fisher Space Pen Company told a story. And most of the story is true. What happened was, when after Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong went onto the surface of the moon, they came back in and were told, okay, by mission control, you guys need to get about 4 hours of sleep. So Buzz had called dibs on the floor. And so when he got down onto the floor, he saw a little piece of plastic. What he realized was the piece of plastic was the switch to power up the aircraft, the spacecraft that was going to get him up off the moon to go back to reconnect with Columbia. So they called down to mission control and said, hey, we broke off the main power switch. What do we do? How do we, you know, power the spacecraft back up? And they said, well, go to sleep for 4 hours and we'll have a procedure for that when you wake up. 4 hours later, they wake up, they call down to mission control and say, hey, how do we power up? And they said, we don't have a procedure for that. So the story was told by the Fisher Pen Company that Buzz stuck one of their Fisher space pens into there to toggle the switch to power up the spacecraft. Most of that is true, except for the fact that he didn't use a Fisher space pen because it was metal. He was in the museum one time, he saw the pen and he says, actually, I didn't dare put a metal object in there because I didn't want to start a fire. I didn't dare stick my finger in there because I didn't want to get shocked. So he just used a good old fashioned felt pen like you and I have at home, like a liner, that he happened to have an approved one on board. And to this day, nobody knows where that felt pen is.
That's a super wild story. I can't imagine being in the same situation. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And our last question is, what are your gift shop hours and what are your plans for reopening?
Okay, so our gift shop hours are from, again, Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And our plans for reopening really are just, they're surrounded by when it's safe for us to reopen. So we're following the county guidelines that are following the state guidelines. And so we've been working very closely with county health officials and watching the state guidelines, which changed a little bit today. And we've been working closely with the county. So as soon as we kind of have the green light from them, we will announce our reopening and welcome everybody back, especially Explorer Pass holders.
Awesome. And your gift shop hours were again?
I'm sorry, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Perfect.
On Saturdays and Sundays, yeah.
So exciting. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, David. Loved your video and love this Q&A.
Yeah.
And before we go, I know you have a virtual series, correct?
Yeah, so we've done this really neat Facebook Live series that we have that's available on our Facebook page, available on our website, available on YouTube. And the four main ones we've done so far have been amazing. The first one, we did something on the 50th anniversary with the crew of Apollo 13. The two astronauts and four of their flight directors. It lasted for 2 hours. It could have gone for 4. They were just amazing to get all of them on at the same time. So that's wonderful. We did that one in April. We did another one with a good friend of the museum, space shuttle astronaut Woody Spring. He talked about the experience of launching and flying in the space shuttle, and it was amazing. Every time I hear him speak, I think about just how crazy it must be to have been launched in a space shuttle. The third one we did was awesome. We had Dr. Jenny Gruber from NASA. She's part of their Artemis program, and she's the lead for the team that's going to create the living quarters on the moon when they start populating the moon again. With NASA has a goal of setting the next woman, or the first woman and the next man on the moon in 2024. So that was really neat to hear her views and presentation on that. And then the last one we did was awesome too. It was with Patty Wagstaff. She's a famous aerial stunt pilot who goes all over the country and all over the world doing not only air shows and competitions, but she also uses an opportunity to visit school children in all the places that she goes to talk about the importance of aviation and everything surrounding it. So we've been very lucky, fortunate to have these wonderful guests. Keep your eyes open. We're working on a new one. We're trying to get some Apollo astronauts. We've got some other ideas of kind of neat for the space program that I think people would be really interested in.
Those sound amazing. We have to tune in for those.
Yeah, they're great.
Again, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And thank you, explorers, for tuning in for this virtual explorer experience at the San Diego Air and Space Museum. And if you want more Balboa Park information and content, including live chat and videos from all across the park, make sure to check out theculturalpartnership.org/updates. That's theculturalpartnership.org/updates. And we hope you enjoyed this virtual experience, and we can't wait to have more with you in the future. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.